Hello, this is Tony from ATS FE, also Tony's Board Life. Today what I wanted to do is I wanted to go over the ATS fully engaged sequence of play and go over kind of how each turn works in a turn of Advanced Tobruktism or ATS. So we have several different, there are two different systems. There is the advanced to contact, which we are not going to go over. It is not used very often. Most people that get into ATS like it because of the impulse system, myself included. So I don't use the advanced contact system, but it is in there for some of the larger battles, so it is a possibility if you want to. I will reference the rule on that one. So the advanced to contact sequence of play is 4.4, so you can take a look at that. Most of the rules that we'll be going over, or most of them, are going to be 4.5. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this and go on to what the four segments that are made up. So there are four segments that make up each turn of an ATS. The first segment is the indirect fire segment, which is 4.51. Next would be the fire and movement segment, which is 4.52. Third is the close assault segment, which is 4.53. And finally, we have the end of turn segment in 4.54. So these are the four. You complete these, and you complete an entire turn of the ATS, of an ATS scenario. So let's take a look at a few things first. So rolling for initiative. So when rolling for initiative, low rolls always wins, and ties are re-rolled. Now, before the indirect fire, before the fire movement, and before the close assault segment, those you have to roll for initiative. Now, there are a few cases where the scenarios will say who moves first, who sets up first, those types of things. So turn one doesn't always have initiative rolling. It depends on the scenario rules. So please make sure that you go over the scenario specific rules, or SSRs, as I'll probably refer to them later on, to make sure that you are using the correct, whether you're rolling for initiative or not. So if there's no specific rules or SSRs for the scenario you're playing, what you will need to do is you will need an indirect fire segment. So we'll start with the indirect fire, and again, roll for initiative unless otherwise notated. You will alternate impulse for the following orders. So now I want to go over what an impulse is real quick, and so that way you guys, so that we understand, and so it's pretty intuitive. But impulse is you will select a unit or hex or platoon or fire group. So you could have multiple hexes, but you select units, and those units will go. If you're doing a platoon movement or fire groups, they do have to be adjacent, and the leader has to be involved with that. And there's other rules specifically going for that. But generally speaking, you select a hex or a unit, and you do something with that unit, and that's your impulse, and then it goes to the other person. This is one of the aspects of ATS that I really like. I love the impulse system. I love I'm not a big I go, you go type system. I love impulse systems. So now back to the indirect fire segment. So the next thing that we need to do for the indirect fire segment is you fire on-board guns and smoke. This is also where mortars will fire HE on the HPT. Personnel cannot use smoke grenades at this time. That's part of the fire movement segment. So on-board guns fire smoke as well as HE. We also have the aircraft attacks. We currently will be doing a tutorial on the aircraft attacks. I know Mitch is taking care of that one. We have onboard spotted and offboard indirect fire. So this is where you can only use spotted fire during this time. You cannot use spotted fire during the fire and movement segment. And I know we're going to be going over mortars. Mortars are big for the spotted because you can fire mortars either in this segment if it's spotted, or if it's direct line of sight, it can be done during the fire and movement segment. So we will have current more on that as well. But in this case, this is where you fire your off-board artillery if there is any due to this scenario. And then we also have the counter battery fire. Again, I've listed the rules for these particular steps. You can reference and go into the rule book, the 2014 rules, 4.xx, whatever they are. So after we finished all those going back and forth, and you've done all those units that you're going to do, that you're able to do, many scenarios, most people don't have any of the indirect fire. So a lot of times indirect fire is not always a long segment. Now, when we get to the fire and movement segment, this is the crux of the game and the main parts of the game that go through this one, and then the close assault segment. So first of all, again, you roll for initiative, barring any SSR rule issues. We have the fire or movement phase. Okay, so you have direct fire and non-spotted on-map mortar fire. So if the mortar can directly see where it's shooting, it can fire. Or direct fire, if you have a gun, a pack, any of the larger weapons, they can fire at this phase as well. Again, 12.5 is on that. We have assault movement and assault fire. So assault movement are different things. So there's movement classifications. There's crawling movement as well as running. The assault movement is kind of the middle of the two, as well as assault fire happens at this time. Again, rules are listed. Cross-country movement, this is for vehicles, so this will give you more movement capabilities, but you will not be able to assault fire. Running movement happens at this time. Crawling movement and assault fire also happens, and I have mentioned that before as well. And then we have all the collateral fire and grazing fire markers. Those are the rules for those two systems. So the one thing that's different between the fire and movement segment and the and the indirect fire segment is you can do any of this at any time. You don't have to just do direct fire first. You don't have to do assault movement. You can do crawling movement first. You can save the direct fire for opportunity fire. You can do any of these at any time. So you can choose any of this. You just have to indicate who's doing it, what class is doing it, things like that, which units are doing it. The close assault segment is one of the areas that rolling for initiative can make a big difference. Sometimes during the fire and movement, there's just so much you can do, so it's not as crazy. But close assault segment, I've had issues where rolling for initiative made or broke some of the units I've lost. Made or broke the areas. So rolling for initiative, again, low roll wins, ties are re-rolled. Infiltration phase, pretty simple. This is actually where you do move or grenade attacks. So you have grenade attacks and you have infiltration movement. Now, infiltration movement is moving one hex or moving into a enemy occupied hex. The enemy then cannot move out of that hex, and a melee marker is placed showing that melee will happen. Now, just because you go in there does not mean that's all you're facing. If the enemy has more units they can bring in, you can bring in more units. So it's it happens at the end. Matter of fact, it happens once all you're done with the grenades attacks and all your infiltration movements. The melee phase are the two that's where most of that goes. So these are the rules for the melee versus personnel and melee versus vehicles. There are different types of rules on that. So please make sure you go over those. There is some, and please make sure you follow the rule book. The scenario or the charts need to be cleaned up a little bit. There's a few confusing on that. So go ahead and make sure you read through the rules thoroughly on that. Now, we're almost done. We're almost to the end of turn segment. So basically, we've moved everything. We fired, we killed, we shot, we ran, we broke, we surrendered. We did all that fun stuff that you do in the ATS segments. So these go, and my best recommendation is go in order on these when you do these, so that way it kind of helps with that. So you remove melee, overrun, ceased fire markers, arrows, flares, smoke 2, and F markers or fire markers. Then you're going to check for intimidation. This is the rule for intimidation. I've never used intimidation, but you still have to check for it. The next thing is smoke and fire. I've already kind of talked about that. Basically, what this is you flip one smoke markers to the 2 side, and then you spread the flames 1 building level up. So with that, so that's where the smoke fires. The FFE markers, you flip them over to the CFF side. That does help for the next turn. You get some modifiers for that because you've already kind of got an idea. And then you're going to roll to unjam weapons, which is an optional rule. It's kind of fun, but take a look and see if that's something you'd want to do. There's plenty of option rules on the back. We are also working on a house rule scenario setup, or not scenario, but house rules, and a list of those as well for our project here. You have all other markers remain, and then you try to rally broken and surrender personnel units as well. If they're surrendered, and we can go over this, but if they're surrendered, you still perform whether there's a leader to find out if they actually surrender or if they just move to broken. Finally, you move the game turn marker to the next game turn, or if it's the final game turn, you check for victory conditions on that scenario. And this actually completes a full turn of the ATS FE scenario. I hope it was helpful for you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please put them in the comments, and we'll try to address them as quickly as possible. We have a great community on the Discord. We also have a great Facebook community as well, and we're probably going to be working on getting a Consim World area as well for the ATSFE. So if you need anything, have any questions, hey, let us know. If you have any recommendations, or if there's any tutorials you would like to see, please let us know. We would like to help as many people out. As you know, we believe this system is very good. I enjoy the system a lot, and we want to make it as popular and as easy and attainable to get as possible. So with that, I will let you go and have everybody have a great day. Bye.